Hello, everyone. It's a wonderful morning on South America, but I'm in India, so it's evening here. So thank you for joining. Thank you for taking the time during this precious time to listen to this important topic. I am Mahesh Ramanujam, President and CEO of the Global Network for Zero, or GNFZ. I co-founded this organization in 2021 to help accelerate the transition to a zero emissions world and to empower people and organizations to take meaningful, measurable climate action. Many of you know me from my time leading the US Green Building Council, the creators of the LEED Green Building Program. It was from that position, growing LEED certification globally, where I witnessed personally extraordinary leadership across South America and especially Brazil, where LEED has grown rapidly and continues to set the standard for sustainable design. I want to take a moment to recognize GBC Brazil's leadership, which has been instrumental in ensuring Brazil's rise up the ranks to one of the top 10 markets for green building in the world. And importantly, Brazil is the first place where we had the first LEED Zero certification, a program that I launched while at US Green Building Council. And I'm very proud of the fact that Brazil was able to hit that first as well, thanks to my friend Guido, who did a fantastic job of helping us realize that milestone. So all around, great progress by the Brazilian leadership. And today I'm coming back to you again with a request to up our game so that we can do more and better. And I will cover most of it in the subsequent conversations. Of course, today I'm not going to talk about why green building and why decarbonization matters, because I believe that you already know that. Instead, I want to talk about what's next. Net zero. And net zero for everyone, every building, every business, every product, so that nobody is left behind. And this is where we stand globally with net zero. Only 0.023% of buildings globally are net zero. Net zero buildings are projected to grow 29% annually through 2027. That is just in the next 2 years. And we are facing a 70% shortfall in the number of low carbon buildings needed. And investor and tenant demand is rising fast. Now, reaching net zero by 2050 will require the buildings and construction industry to decarbonize 3 times faster over the next 30 years versus the previous 30, because we have to cover for all the gaps that we have not been able to deliver. So the next frontier obviously is clear: designing, constructing, and retrofitting buildings to address all emissions, scope 1, 2, and 3. So today we will explore how South America, particularly Brazil, can lead this transition, and how GNFC helps remove barriers, and how companies like yours are already paving the way. So joining me today is David Douek, I believe who you know already, with local insights from the region, and my colleague Sri Ranjani Srinivasan, who will demo our certification platform. And importantly, let's not make this a speech, but a good conversation, so that the more we share, the more we can strengthen the network. With less than 5 years to the Paris Climate Agreement, most net zero pledges remain behind schedule. But the UN says 1.5 degrees Celsius is still achievable. And I like that optimism. But we must move faster. Buildings are central to the transition, especially in Brazil, where rapid urbanization and innovation offer unique opportunity. So every country in South America, including Brazil, has ratified the Paris Agreement. And in Brazil, recently, more rigorous interim deadlines have been set to a 37% reduction by 2025 and 50% by 2030. So technically, we are already on the 37% mark this year and 50% mark by 2030. Progress is happening, but major markets across South America are embracing the design, construction, and operations of high-performance green buildings. And the green building market in the region is also expected to grow 3% between 2023 and 2028. So a lot of gravity that we can take advantage of. Now, the entire region as a whole also has a clean energy advantage. Renewables account for about 60% of electricity generation, far above the global average. The outlook is quite promising for Brazil in specific, where 80% of electricity comes from renewables, primarily hydropower, wind, solar, and biomass. And with the power sector already largely decarbonized, the country has a substantial head start over fossil fuel dependent economies. It also benefits from one of the most powerful climate assets, the Amazon rainforest. In energy innovation, Brazil is a global leader in biofuels, which are helping decarbonize transportation and heavy industry. These sectors, along with agribusiness, mining, and manufacturing, are increasingly embracing low carbon technologies and sustainable production methods. So that obviously positions Brazil to become a top exporter of climate smart commodities. I don't think many countries can claim that credit as Brazil does. With its vast renewable energy base, abundant natural ecosystems, and growing momentum in sustainable innovation, Brazil is not only prepared for the transition to net zero, it has the potential to lead it. And I like to say it is leading it already. Now that we have set the stage, I want to talk about how we are doing, what we are doing at GNFC to support this transition in a rapid manner. So we created a platform and a certification program designed to meet this particular moment. Our goal is simple: make net zero accessible, practical, and measurable for any building or business anywhere. It's as simple as that. Now, we support buildings, portfolios, organizations with a full suite of certification programs. We believe that it's a good way to validate good implementation. And we are a global network providing expert support and a supportive community of climate leaders working to accelerate decarbonization efforts toward a zero emissions future. Now, our framework is grounded in years of market insights and global best practices and is built to simplify net zero implementation by eliminating the complexity and cost that hold most of the projects back. One of the biggest challenges we see: buildings and businesses lack credible net zero transition plans. Either they are too lofty and vague, or they are too granular and not scalable. So we thought that this is the area where we should spend enormous amount of time so that we can move the slow implementation, because leaders don't have the required data, obviously, to make the business case, to accelerate them to a consistent progress towards their goal. And that is what we have set out to fix. It's as simple as that. And I call our approach as zero to zero approach. And our zero to zero approach basically means is that if you have done nothing, you can get started with our program and start moving towards zero. And if you are this beautiful LEED Platinum building that has done everything you can and you are gone beyond LEED, then now let's close the gap and show to the world that you're already net zero by closing to the zero. So it is basically, in simplistic terms, it's zero to zero approach. And of course, we want a zero scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions. As simple as that. Now, we offer 3 certification options for buildings and portfolios and businesses. Our net zero certification for buildings provides a framework to demonstrate that buildings are designed, constructed, and operated in net zero by removing scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. What does that mean? We want buildings to generate, or the business, or for that matter, anybody, to generate more energy than they consume, save more emissions than they actually release in the atmosphere, save more water than they use, and most importantly, reduce waste, hopefully zero waste to landfill, and positively impact the physical, mental, and social health of occupants. And this is why we offer our certification in 4 categories. And we define net zero emissions as a building balancing its total scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions with equivalent emissions removed or offset. Yes, we are considering offset as part of our solution. And then we believe that projects will eventually phase out their offsets if we guide them through a proper implementation plan. Now, you may ask this question: how do we calculate this? And I promise you that when Sriranjani gets to it, she will go in detail about this. But for scope 1, we look at fuel sources and their consumptions, the consumption of refrigerants, and fuel consumption of vehicles owned or controlled by the reporting organization. And for scope 2, we are looking at a building's annual consumption from these sources. And for scope 3, we look at indirect downstream activities, including the 15 categories outlined here, which are coming from the greenhouse gas protocol. And first, let me take upon the first category, energy. Obviously, net zero energy for a building is for a building generating renewable energy on site or off site equal to its annual energy consumption, resulting in the mitigation of scope 1, 2, and emissions. and zero net energy drawn from the grid. And the last two categories impact things beyond scope emissions. Net zero water is defined as a building balancing its total water consumption with an equivalent amount of water replenished on-site or through alternative sources. And net zero waste is defined as a building that aims to eliminate waste generation by maximizing recycling, composting, and other diversion strategies to achieve zero waste sent to the landfill. As simple as that. So projects can earn net zero design certification, net zero construction certification, and net zero operation certification. Now, what makes GNFZ unique? It's simply our approach, because we know that in order for us to scale this, we must remove all the confusions and address all the concerns raised by the market. And that is what we try to do with our program. First things first, our certification is built on the GHG protocol, the greenhouse gas protocol. And 9 out of 10 Fortune 500 companies are using greenhouse gas protocol. Significant companies reporting to CDP are using greenhouse gas protocol. And most importantly, greenhouse gas protocol gives a consistent way for everybody to measure scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. Now, we are making it about pure accounting based on data, so that unlike other traditional certification where emission data may be obscured, we are trying to make it precise. We are trying to make it clear that quantification of emissions is key to demonstrating progress against zero. And we believe that this will enable clients to access, quantify, and extract emissions data for compliance, but not only stay there with compliance, but do leadership through SBTI and GRI alignment. Because after all these programs are requiring the same: align to a net zero emission goal and then show progress against it. Second, unlike most green building programs, we are not about prerequisites. We have removed every prerequisites. We have given everybody a free form to start their journey. That means that we are going to meet people where they are. If you have done lead silver, we'll take you from lead silver to zero. If you have done nothing, we'll take you from that place to zero. And if you have done something in between, or if you have done everything, but then you have to close the gap, as I mentioned earlier, we take you to zero. So we keep it very simple and organic by actually recognizing the good work that you have already done and then putting all our emphasis on where the implementation has to go. Third, we keep it simple. We must be laser focused on emissions. There is no time for distraction, right? Yes, 30 years of lead, everybody has done a good job. We have all understood points. We have all understood the different certification level. But the most important thing, even while at US Green Building Council, we emphasize is that data is the new natural resource, and what gets measured gets done, what gets done gets improved, what gets improved gets replicated. So transparency is key. So we have to demonstrate, every project has to demonstrate progress through data, and reduction in emissions should be the focus for every project that's out there. And fourth is that our platform supports compliance, which I mentioned earlier. And of course, we are aligned with frameworks like SBTI, GRI, and most importantly, we are recently recognized by GRESB. And last but not the least, GNFZ certification is unique because it addresses all 3 scopes, 1, 2, and 3. We don't prescribe when you should address them, but we are telling you that you must address it. And we are trying to bring a sharper scrutiny into scope 3, because that is where most of our challenges lie. And as I mentioned, we follow the guidelines of the GHG protocol. And because we follow the GHG protocol, our design certification assesses embodied emissions for building materials. Our construction certification assesses embodied emissions from building materials, as well as processes and emissions due to electricity, fuel, and more consumed exclusively for construction. And then our operation certification assesses embodied emissions from building materials or equipment used during major retrofitting or end-of-life replacement during the baseline year considered. So although we are focusing on operation certification, should there be a need for retrofit, and if there is embodied emissions involved, we are accounting for it, because that is what GHG protocol tells us to do. Now, that's one of the reasons this is very flexible framework. And as you can see, from the design phase to construction to operations, we account for embodied carbon at every stage. So then, obviously, we cannot scale building by building. We have to go beyond buildings. That means we have to focus on portfolios. That is why we created net zero certification for portfolios. And there we are offering 2 types of certification. One is at a total portfolio level, or you can go asset by asset, then add it to a portfolio. The choice is yours. Of course, all four categories are relevant: energy, water, emissions, and waste. And then we also offer a structured stepwise pathway for businesses to reach net zero. So I'm not sure if any of the audience on this call is interested in business level certification. If you are, the methodology largely remains the same. Obviously, how you count your inventory sources, what contributes to your inventory sources will be a little bit different than for a building, but the approach and the methodology remains nevertheless same. And importantly, we offer the same categories: energy, water, waste, and emissions. Now, without further ado, I want to just, with that background, with a lot of information, I will transition this to introduce Dr. David Douek, a leading expert in sustainability and high performance buildings in Brazil. David, who is currently the CEO of OTEC, a pioneering consultancy that has been at the forefront of environmental performance, energy efficiency, and ESG strategies for nearly 2 decades. Of course, he is an architect and a business administrator by training, but he also holds a PhD and MSc in business administration from the University of Sao Paulo. And he's also a lead fellow, a Well AP, Fitwell ambassador, age expert, and the only counselor of real estate CRE in South America. And most importantly, a GNFZ partner and a friend and an ally. Under his leadership, OTEC has led projects totaling over 18 million square meters, guiding some of the world's most prominent organizations in achieving ambitious sustainability goals, including certifications such as LEED, WELL, Fitwell, EDGE, and most recently GNFZ. So please join me in welcoming Dr. David Douek. David, please take it away.
Thank you, Mahesh. Good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be with all of you today. I would like to begin by thanking Mahesh and Sri Ranjani for that fantastic introduction, and most importantly, for your vision in building this global movement for a carbon neutral world. Brazil first global network for zero certification project. I want to say that again. Brazil's first global network for zero certified project. The title of this presentation is more than a milestone. It's a proof that real, verifiable, and scalable decarbonization is not just possible, but is already happening here in Brazil. Before I explain how we got here, let me first reintroduce myself. As Mahesh mentioned, my name is David Douek. I'm a doctor of business, an architect and sustainability consultant, and I feel honored to be CEO of OTEC. In the past 18 years, OTEC has been working together with organizations from all around Brazil to develop carbon emission reduction plans, enhance environmental, social, and governance performance, and achieve high-performance certifications. I'm a proud lead fellow and the only South American member of the Councilors of Real Estate. Now that you know who we are, I'd like to take a look at where we are. Today's story is not just the story of one project, it's a story of the broader transformation of Brazil. To know where we are going, first we have to know where we are at. And to accomplish that, I'm using the most recent available number from SEEG, the Greenhouse Gas Emission Estimation System, overseen by the Climate Observatory. According to their last annual report, Brazil emitted around 2.27 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent in 2002. And this has been increasing lately. What's most fascinating is the breakdown. Land use change, mainly deforestation, was responsible for 48% of the emissions, agriculture 24%, and the energy sector was responsible for 18%. Industry and waste responsible for 10%. In other words, unlike many countries, Brazil's emissions are largely shaped by how we manage land, forests, agriculture, and infrastructure, not just by fossil fuel use. This creates a diverse set of opportunities for climate leadership across sectors. In response to this context, policy is rapidly changing in the country. Law 50,042, signed in 2024, established Brazil National System of Emissions Trading, the Brazilian Emissions Trading System. Thousands of companies will soon be required to monitor, report, and offset their emissions. In another development, the Brazilian Securities and Exchange Commission has adopted global standards of disclosure for the International Sustainability Standards Board. Beginning in 2026, all listed companies will have to disclose detailed climate-related financial information. In this new regulation world, carbon and climate data will be business as usual. So, how do companies make sense of it all and lead with certainty? Here, companies more than noble intentions. They need robust tools combining scientific accuracy, transparency, and consistency with national and international requirements. That's where the Global Network for Zero certification comes in. It offers a robust, step-by-step process to quantify, cut, and confirm greenhouse gas emissions across all scopes. And just for clarity on where it fits in the ecosystem, this is not a replacement for schemes like LEED, EDGE, WELL, or FITO, or even ESG performance scores. It's a complement. While those tools provide sustainability and operational excellence in a more generic context, Global Network for Zero certification focuses specifically on greenhouse gas emissions, scopes 1, 2, and 3 altogether, and the long-term impact of the climate that must be addressed today. And what makes it even more relevant is its flexibility. This certification can apply to a single building, to corporate headquarters, industrial processes, and whole portfolio, or even an entire company. That makes it a powerful, scalable solution suitable for real-world business needs. This brings us to the journey we've had at OTEC. At OTEC, we've always believed in leading by doing. We introduced Brazil to its first LEED certified stadium. We led the country's first LEED certification for existing buildings at both gold and platinum levels, and we initiated the first factory in Brazil to be LEED Gold certified. Those weren't just checklists. Those were defining moments that redefined what was possible. With that kind of experience, we knew this next step was not just about recognition. Today, we're driving the same culture of innovation toward carbon neutrality. That's not a slogan, but a shift in how organizations operate, make business decisions, and prepare for a low-carbon economy. Bearing in mind all this context, I can now take you through a real case of that shift. LFRV Lawyers, a São Paulo law firm, became the first entity in Brazil to be Global Network for Zero, Net Zero Operation certified. It all began with a strong start, having knowledge of their emissions. We built a comprehensive inventory of electricity, mobility, procurement, and waste. The framework was grounded on the Greenhouse Gas Protocol and the ISO 14064 standard. We ensured alignment to Brazil's regulatory framework and anticipated global disclosure norms. Then, on to planning. We developed a strategic roadmap, being 10% reduction of emission by 2030 and full carbon neutrality by 2040. LFRV also established a net zero committee and appointed an ESG leader to monitor progress in-house. And then the plan became reality. They adjusted their lighting and HVAC system, shifted to remote work policy, adopted digital workflows that reduced paper usage over 70%, and engaged the workers with the workshop and challenges. Of course, all of that is for nothing without visibility. The whole evidence and data were combined with the Global Network for Zero platform to facilitate real-time monitoring at total audit readiness. Independent verification was the final phase. Now, it was performed by the Global Network for Zero. All indicators were independently verified to ensure maximum transparency and credibility. And what did this lead to? In April of 2025, LFRV was certified, the first in Brazil to undergo this process. But don't take my word for it. Here's what LFRV themselves said. The Global Network for Zero certification is not just a nod. It's the validation of a technical, nitty-gritty process that aligns with our values. Working with OTEC was a watershed. Net zero became part of our fabric and service. And yet, they are not finished. LFRV improves data quality, explores renewable energy procurement, and looks ahead to annual recertification in alignment with shifting regulation. So, what does it mean to you? If your business is thinking about net zero for one plant of your entire operation, I invite you to find out more about the Global Network for Zero. And if you need assistance along the way, OTEC stands ready to assist. Be first in your city, in your state, in your industry, and then encourage others to follow. Because ultimately, decarbonization is more than carbon. It's clean air, sustainable prosperity, and human dignity. It's the future we build together. But now, before we wrap up, I'd like to address a few challenges and opportunities and advantages of the certification. Now, when you talk about certification, it's easy to think about the obvious benefits: better visibility, greater traceability, and improved management systems. And yes, those are real, tangible benefits. But the value of certification goes much, much further than operational efficiency. What we are really talking about is credibility, sending a clear, independent signal to the market that your business is serious about its commitments. We're also talking about competitive differentiation in a world where more and more businesses are claiming to be sustainable, but few can actually prove it. A good certification can be the tipping point that allows you to win the trust of investors, secure top clients, and position your business as a true leader in the transition to a low-carbon economy. So when deciding whether or not to pursue a certification, don't only look at spreadsheets. Look at the long-term strategic value, because in today's market, third-party validation isn't just a nice to have. It's a differentiator that will set the leaders apart from the pack. As many of you know, embarking on a sustainability certification process, whether it's net zero, EDGE, LEED, WELL, or any other recognized standards, typically begins with two initial barriers: documentation and expense. At first glance, this can seem like barriers. The financial investment required may prompt tough conversation. The effort to gather historical data, technical reports, or operational records may feel overwhelming. But what we've learned time and again is that these initial hurdles are in fact powerful catalysts for change. So let's start with cost. Well, certification do require money, but this expenditure gives rise to much deeper questions. Are we spending our dollars or our reais in the best way possible? The process makes organizations analyze their operations, energy and water use, material purchasing, and so on. In the process, we typically discover inefficiencies that were hidden before. What began as an expense becomes a means of long-term savings, risk mitigation, and asset performance enhancement. Now, documentation. When customers say to us, we don't have the data, or it's dispersed in different departments, we know we're about to open up an enormous opportunity. The necessity to report and verify performance provokes better internal systems, better interdepartmental communication, and ultimately a culture of transparency. It allows organizations to move from reactive to proactive management. In short, the certification process becomes a management tool, not a prestige or compliance badge. It gets teams to rethink the way they plan, measure, and improve. It transforms pain points into strategic intelligence. And more importantly, it uncovers something essential, that sustainability is not a separate project. It's a platform for integration, innovation, and leadership. So yes, there are difficulties, but each one is also a chance to develop, to enhance, and to lead. I want to thank you for your time, your leadership, and your commitment to action. I invite you to create Brazil's net zero future together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, David. Yes, sir.
No, please continue.
Yeah, so I would like to go ahead and showcase our net zero certification platform to everyone. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Right. So I'm hoping my screen is visible, and I'll start with the demo. This is the login interface to our net zero certification platform. If you are a first-time user, you can go ahead and sign up right here. But I'm just going to go ahead and sign in. And what you will see as soon as I sign in is a list of projects that I've been working on. Again, if you are a first-time user, this is what you would see. And as David had showcased earlier, it would ask you what is the net zero certification that you would like to pursue. We've launched this for the buildings, portfolios, and businesses. And I will be walking you through the building platform today. For ACE of the demo, I've got data for 2 projects that I'll walk you through. Let's start with Alpha Tower 3310. So the minute you start a project, this is the first thing you would see. It's the overview tab where you can basically take control of your project for submissions. We will, however, come back to this in a while. We'll start instead with the basic info. And as the name suggests, this is where you provide all of the basic information about your project. You can tell us your building title, the occupancy category. Now, this is available as a whole drop-down list that you can pick from, but feel free to type and tag it as well. You can then go on to tell us the target certification area and geolocate your project as well. Now, what's interesting is this particular question, which will ask you if this building is a part of. So let's say the project that you're working on is not a standalone building, but rather an asset that belongs to a larger portfolio. Maybe it's a building that's part of a larger campus, or perhaps it belongs to a larger organization. Then you have the opportunity to tag this to the larger entity, basically. And that's what I've done here. You can then go on to tell us if you'd like to keep your project submission confidential, and also upload some photographs and videos of the project as well. The next part is where you onboard all of your team that's going to be helping in the decarbonization journey. This can include everyone right from the facility management team, the sustainability partner, the architect, perhaps your HVAC, MEP consultants. So basically, like I said, just about everybody who will help with the decarbonization process. The next tab is the assessment, and this is the most critical part of the net zero certification program. As mentioned earlier, our net zero certification is based on the GHG protocol, which will help you calculate your emissions under scope 1, 2, and 3. You would ideally be starting the assessment by mentioning the reporting period. We suggest this to be 12 consecutive months. just to ensure we take into account all the changes that happens in the operations because of seasons. Now you have the opportunity to report multiple periods. So here for this project, you can see that there is 5 different years of data that's available, and you also have the flexibility to choose your own baseline. Moving on to the assessment, let's look at scope 1. So here we have 3 questions. The first one is on fuel consumption. The second question is on refrigerant fugitives. And the third question is on mobile combustions. We'll start with the first question. You would be starting with an empty row and clicking under fuels. You can see that there's a whole drop-down list that includes solid fuels, liquid fuels, gaseous, and biofuels as well. Let's pick one. So the minute I pick a fuel, you can see that the emission factor gets picked from our database. And all that you will now be required to enter is the consumption. And there you have your emissions calculated immediately. So the emission factors in our database are from reputed sources such as US EPA, DEFRA, IPCC's Assessment Report 6, and any other region-specific emission factors that are publicly available. But let's say for your project, there's a more market-specific emission factor that you have. And you have the opportunity or the flexibility to edit this emission factor accordingly. So let's just do that. So the minute I edit the emission factor, you can see that there is an icon that appears. And hovering over this, it will give you the default value from our database. And you can always compare it with the more market-specific emission factor that you have entered. We can look at one more calculation. Let's look at refrigerant fugitives. Again, you would be starting with an empty row and clicking under the type of refrigerant. You can see there's a whole drop-down list that you can pick from. So let's pick one. So the minute I pick a refrigerant, the emission factor appears. Like I said, all that you'll now be required to enter is just the consumption. And there you have your emissions computed immediately. So this is how all of the calculations work. That was scope 1. Let's look at scope 2. So scope 2 is where you account for all of the energy that's consumed within the building during its reporting period. This would include the non-renewable electricity purchased from the grid. Or let's say if you are generating renewable energy on site, you can include that. At the same time, if you are procuring renewable energy from an off-site source, you can include that as well under scope 2. Scope 3 is where it gets a little more interesting because we have several categories under which you will be able to capture the emissions. And depending on the typology of the project, the category under which you capture data would differ. Of course, this particular project is a commercial office tower, so you can see that there is some data available on waste disposal. This is basically the waste that has been sent to the landfill. There's again some data available on the waste incinerated and employee commute as well. At the end of this, we have a summary of scope emissions. This is basically a summation of your scope 1, 2, and 3. And then you can go on to tell us if there are any best practices or standards that you are looking to implement within your building. This again is available as a whole drop-down list, but feel free to type and tag as well. You can then provide all of the documents that will help in substantiating the data that you have provided right at the assessment. This could include your invoices, the bills, data from your BMS systems, and all of that. This would help with the validation process, of course. The next tab is the net zero plan. So what's happened is we have completed the assessment. We've set a baseline. We know where the project stands in terms of its emissions, and it's now going to be critical to prepare a decarbonization strategy. So this is a narrative document that the project team prepares in collaboration with the sustainability partner. This would include all of the strategies that you're looking to implement for getting your project to net zero, the timeline by when you want to achieve that final goal. And of course, if at some point, if you're looking to purchase carbon offsets to perhaps address your residual emissions, then all of that gets included in the net zero plan, and the same can be uploaded right here. The next tab is carbon offsets, where you can come back and report the purchase of the carbon offsets that you had mentioned in your net zero plan by basically telling us what is the planned purchase of the carbon offsets, what is the actual purchase that has occurred, and of course, the accumulative of the actual purchase is taken into account for the final calculation. The next tab here is net zero milestones. So like I said earlier, we've assessed the project. We know the where it stands in terms of emissions. We've prepared a decarbonization strategy, which also means you're now going to be implementing these strategies on ground. This basically means annually you're going to be looking at a reduction in the emissions in your project. So you can come back and report that reduction of emissions right here by mentioning what was the planned reduction of emissions, what is the actual reduction that has occurred after the implementation of strategies, and of course, a cumulative of the actual reduction is taken into account for the final calculation. The next tab here is a summary of emissions, where you would see all your numbers right from the assessment up until your net zero milestones. So again, here you see scope 1, 2, and 3 and a summation of that from your baseline. And then you have the, if there have been any carbon offset purchases, that gets accounted for. If there has been a reduction in emissions through the implementation of strategies, that gets accounted for as well. And the final number that you see is now the emissions that the project has to avoid to get to net zero. This summary of emissions can be downloaded as a spreadsheet or a PDF. It's also readily available as a link that can be copied and shared. The final tab here is project files, where all your documents and images that you are uploading in the various tabs gets centrally stored here for easy access. Now let's go back to the overview tab. What you can see here is, like I said, this is where you take control of your project for submissions. You can see I've already said we have completed the building information. I've said we've completed the team information. And now that we've completed the assessment, let me go ahead and submit this for a review. So the minute I click next, there's a payment gateway that will open, following which you will be able to submit your project for a third-party validation. So what I'll do next is I'll walk you through a project that's already gone through this process of validation. So this is Alpha Office 1110. And you can see from the overview tab here that the project has already gone through the validation process and achieved 2 certificates, namely the assessment and the net zero plan. So the minute you submit your project, like I showcased you a minute ago, there's an independent third-party validator who's brought on board. And there's a very transparent interaction that can happen between the project team and the reviewer that gets recorded right here under the comments. So you can see that there have been some queries raised that gets addressed by the project team immediately, some documents that have been exchanged for helping address these queries as well. At the end of this, when all queries have been addressed, the reviewer would recommend the project for the certificate, at which point GNFZ will approve the certificate, and it's made available right here at the Overview tab. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. We'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
I think some people have to leave, so I didn't try to respond to them real time while you guys are all discussing and presenting, but we will make this recording available to everybody. And of course, anything else you need also, we are more than happy to share. But any questions and comments you have, please let me know. I see some familiar names as well.
So there is one question for David from Victor, who says, how long does the Brazil Lawyer Office certification take? And do you need a multitask team for the site assessment?
Well, the certification period covers 12 months, so you should be able to gather data for this period of time. And it's also good to consider that the main idea is to recertify, the project every single year. So when you plan for the certification, you should probably consider this structure in your team. But regarding the size of the team you would need, you should probably consider that it depends on the scope you're planning to certify. So a law firm is a reasonable size project, but if you think, for example, that a bank could decide to pursue a certification for its 3,000 buildings, or if you think that maybe you have an infrastructure project, you could certify the construction of a road, of an avenue, of a neighborhood. I mean, it really depends on what you are planning to certify. So, and this is certainly something we could help you evaluate. And but I don't believe that it's a burden, especially because once that you have everything organized, especially with the Global Net Zero tool, it's pretty easy to document everything you need, and it shouldn't be a huge problem.
Yeah, Sriranjani, I will take the next question. That's from Daniel. Hi, Daniel. I just saw briefly on the camera for you. Hello, how are you? To answer you, good to see you. It's so surprising that if you remember, we started this whole GNFC conversation with you after I left USGBC. So thanks to your earlier insights, we are able to develop this program and actually celebrate in your homeland, Brazil, today with you. That is a nice surprise for me personally. So thank you very much. It's wonderful. Related to the certification cost, I'll go ahead and share that. Sriranjani will share that with you. But at this point of time, what I've been telling everybody is that I want to get enough credibility behind this program by showing people to use it. So I don't want cost to be a barrier, because there are so many other barriers exist. So at this point in time, it's very difficult to do a lot of things. So from my side, I'm trying to go after that first 100 projects we can show the world that we can get this moving in the right direction. So just keep that in mind. And I will go ahead and send something to you after this call. Sriranjani or me, one of us will send it to you. And we are looking forward to working with you to certify your project. Once we certify your project, we know that after that, nothing will stop us. So I look forward to it. Thank you. Absolutely, Daniel. We will follow up with you and set up a demo for your team. Thank you. Thanks for joining. It was a nice surprise. Anybody else? Any questions? So, while you're thinking about your question, the only ask I have is that I think this is an important cause. Yes, somebody else before I say something. Yes, Flora, please.
Hello, my name is Flora. I'm from Brazil. It was a pleasure to hear from all of you. My question is, I'm not if I want to get this certification, like you do provide more than just the platform for us to put the data, or some kind of personal team to come and figure it out how we do it, or just like about the tools and the platform that we can access in Global Network 4.0, and by the information that we get there, we will kind of have this manual or plan to go to the main goal, which is the zero emission and certification.
May I answer
Yeah, I
this
think
one, Mahesh? Yeah.
yes, you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Flora, that's our role in the process.
Okay.
Yeah. So OTEC is gonna help you, create the infrastructure, document, whatever you need, and support you throughout the whole process, so that we can input the information in Global Network for Zero platform, and pursue the certification. So the first step would be, to start working with us, so that we can help you, design the process and pursue the certification.
And OTEC works just for the building part of the certification, or for business and portfolio also? Just the building?
No. Whatever you need, we can help you with.
Okay. Because I heard that you are an architect, right? And I was kind of trying to understand.
You just had one side of it.
Yeah.
I have a background in business as well. My PhD and my master is in business.
Wow.
So
yeah, it was just a bad interpretation of your speech.
No problem.
I'm sorry.
No problem. But yeah, the idea is to help you with whatever you need. We are gonna help you define the scope of work you're planning to certify. As I mentioned in my presentation, it could be a process, a fleet, a business, a building as well, a portfolio, but it has to be a reasonable scope of work. It can be an operation, it could be a new building. It has to make sense. It has to be a valuable representation of your business. I mean, so we can. This is a strategy. The strategy is something we can help you with as well.
Okay. Very good. Okay, thank you, David, Mahesh, and Siridan, Journey.
Thank you, Flora. I believe Daniel had some other comments. Daniel has left you some message regarding certification. Daniel, in short, we are not trying to. We are going the inverse, right? Everybody else has got prerequisites. They have got conditions, and interoperability is a little bit challenging. As you know very well, you are working on multiple streams of work. We have tried to make this program not about us, but about the project, about the client. So wherever there is opportunity to collaborate and recognize good work, that is something we'll recognize. And from there only, the delta only has to be built. Our goal is to push all projects to zero. So from that perspective, we can debate a little bit more when we do the demo for your team. I would go a little deeper into that conversation, because you are more familiar with this space. But generally, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to make it not a religion, but more converge everybody to focus on a common goal that you know very well that we are all aspiring to do, and really push everybody to that greatness by using all the tools that are available there, but stay focused on the goal and get there. And our focus is on zero across these 4 categories.
Can I make
can you unmute? Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah,
yes.
I just unmuted. I think that's very promising, and I just came back from Ireland, where we were part of some UNEP meetings with global leaders in this space. And one area too that we're working on more is with like non-real estate portfolios as well. So
yes.
I think one promising thing on the tool is that you can use it to help reach net zero for buildings, portfolios, and organizations as well. And I really like that you had for scope 1, 2, and 3, that it actually helps you calculate the emissions, because for a lot of organizations, right, that's a barrier as well. But that, it's not only a certification, but it actually gives you tools to calculate your emissions. So very promising. I would love to help you spread the word about your tool also in many different markets. Thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you, David, as well, for, very inspiring everything you're doing. And it was really great to see the project that you implemented. Loved the presentation. Thank you so much for all the amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
So much, Daniel.
Someday you have to see. Sorry, David, 1 second. Someday you have to share the secret of how you stay young even after we meet you for 5 years later. That's a secret you have to share with us.
I woke up 5:30 a.m. today, went to the gym before this meeting. That was 7 a.m. But
Go ahead, David. Sorry.
Antonio Macedo wants to ask a question as well.
Hello, my friends. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Antonio. How are you?
Good to see you all. Good to see you, Mahesh, Danielle.
Wonderful to
David.
meet you.
Yeah, it's very nice to talk to you again. Long time no
Yes,
see.
it's indeed our pleasure. Please.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you for inviting me. I just want to share that it is, first of all, compliment you all for the presentation and the work that you've been done. I actually wish the best for you all. Brazil needs something like that. And I think it's just starting, right? It's huge ocean to navigate in Brazil in this area. And I just want to let you know that please count on me. I am here in Brazil. I'm looking forward to working with you guys maybe. And just let me know. Mahesh, you have my contact. Just answer your message from LinkedIn. And Davi, just let me know whatever you need. Danielle also. It'd be great to be.
Thank you so
honored to
much,
help.
Anthony. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you as always. You always
See you
you
then.
always come to the front. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you,
And
Antonio.
since we're at the top of the hour, what I will suggest to all of you is that if you have a project that you would like to test drive, do bring it forward. Don't worry about what kind of project it is. All projects are welcome. The harder the project, it is better, because that is what we are trying to show to the world, right? Projects that are already well underway, they'll keep making progress. But who are struggling to get started? What are the barriers? Maybe that's where we can help the market move the needle, because that is where we have to show real progress. And if we do that, sufficient momentum will build to the next level. So please reach out to me, David, Sriranjani, anybody on this call. Obviously, it's a network. And thanks for listening. Thanks for your valuable time. And let's continue the dialogue.
Thank you all. It was
Thank you,
great to be
everyone.
with you as well.
Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.